cerebral, small vessel disease.
That's what your dad has.
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of people can have this. When does it become CADASIL? When you have this plus a mutation
Okay.
in notch 3.
So the people on the top are the ones that you're saying millions.
Yes, and this is actually a very common condition that you will think, you will be as famous as Alzheimer's, but it's not. Why is it not? Because this disease came to our attention as a community of doctors and scientists only very recently, when we started to be able to do MRIs and we started to be able to do CAT scans. Because this is when we get a patient with dementia and we look at the MRI and it looks like different, okay? And this is a very common condition in all individuals and in patients that have, yes? Please interrupt me anytime.
No,
I
I
don't
didn't
mind.
interrupt you, but is that what they used to call hardening of the arteries?
For instance.
They used
Yeah,
to
or
tell our
the,
grandparents.
or any, yeah, exactly. Or like it's very much associated with what we call cardiovascular risk factors. It's people that have diabetes. It's people that have high blood pressure, dyslipidemia. A lot of these things. They smoke, all these things, and then the vessels in the brain start to degenerate, and there are problems in the brain, and there is actually ischemia, and this leads to this condition, and then they start losing their ability to walk, their ability to speak, sometimes to think, to remember, or they get stroke. Okay, and this is progressive and all of that. Now, this is in all individuals, and this is very much associated with what we call cardiovascular risk factors. Okay? Heart and everything. Okay. Now, what happens in CADASIL is that it can happen in younger individuals, younger than that, and it's not necessarily, and I can ask you, how many of you have high blood pressure? How many of you have diabetes? How many of you have, we're just hearing about someone that has some heart, a heart abnormality, but we know it's very common. So, but if you ask a CADASIL crowd, how many of them have these cardiovascular risk factors, they can have it, but it's not necessarily the cause. It doesn't help, okay? But it's not necessarily the cause. So these cardiovascular risk factors is not necessarily present. It is very common. Okay?
So
Is that clear?
that helps a lot. All those millions of people who have that, they could have CADASIL, it's just that they don't know that it could be in their family, so they have not had the actual test.
Yes.
But it's very possible that they do have it.
But it's not necessarily, so this is the thing, it's not always, how important is it that you have the mutation in NOTCH3? Well, it's very important to know, but maybe the consequences are the same at the end. So
Yes,
I would say a larger proportion of these people, if all tested, may test for NOTCH3 mutation as positive. But a lot of them are not going to be positive. They have the disease simply because they are old and simply because they have these cardiovascular risk factors. But the way the arteries respond to it and the way the disease develops actually has the same consequences. Okay? Yes?
But in CADASIL, the GOM builds up in the arteries, whereas in just ischemic cerebral small vessel disease, you don't have the GOM building up in the arteries?
That is true. So there are some differences and there are some similarities. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the GOMs, and here I'm going to show some pictures and we can actually share some more about that. That is different, but my research has focused a lot on it, and I'm going to show you some new things that we have discovered. Where this is just a marker that actually plays a role in causing the disease. is something that is not clear. It's helpful for diagnosis, okay?
So is CADASIL a subset of the people who have ischemic cerebral small vessel disease?
Exactly.
So everybody who has CADASIL also has?
Yes, so this could be
Okay.
this could be like the umbrella.
Yes. But, okay.
This could be the umbrella term, and this will be a part of it.
Okay.
And this is very important for us to know. So for the people that are interested in doing awareness, we're not talking about here about something that is fringe or it's totally, maybe it's relevant to the, maybe a lot of families, but if you put in the larger context of public health problem, might not be seen as very relevant, but it is. It is very relevant. It's the genetic manifestation, the genetic form of a very, very important problem. And this is something that patients should be aware of, and also that scientists and physicians are just learning, okay? And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. Now, what are the CADASIL enigmas? What are the new things that are really there for us to look at and can actually be helpful? I'm gonna make this exercise because I know you, and this is something I was discussing over breakfast with people, is I've been working on CADASIL for yes, 10, 11 years, but some of you have been living with it since you were born, because you were born with the mutation. So I've always said, and I learned this from my mentor in Colombia, that the ones that know the best about the disease are the patients. The only thing we do as physicians and scientists is we learn from you, okay? So I want to hear what you have to say, and I just want to get a few points so that we are all on the same page. So tell me what you see here. What do you think this is? What do you think this represents? And someone can come over and show me. Let's try to make this interactive. What is this? What does it represent?
It's brain.
Okay. It's an image of the brain, half the brain at least. Okay, what's happening?
Blood vessel breakages.
What was that?
Blood vessel breakages.
Okay, which one?
Right, like a microbleed or hemorrhage or something.
Okay, so this is a vessel, something that looks like a vessel, and here there is a hemorrhage. And what's happening on the right?
It's
On the
cloudy.
left.
It's cloudy.
Are those
Tissue
It's
dying.
What was that?
Brain tissue is dying.
This is maybe represents brain tissue dying, and probably here and there too. Okay. And what happened here?
I was gonna say, what you see in the left, would that show up on an MRI as those white lesions?
Yes, this could, and this could show up as the white lesion. So here, this is just trying to represent what we call the really big types of stroke. What is a stroke? Is the brain, what does the brain want and need? It wants blood. It wants blood that is rich in food, and it wants blood that is rich in oxygen, and which is totally, it just doesn't have it, or it doesn't have it enough. That's what we call a stroke. And the stroke can happen because of a hemorrhage, when it's simply the blood vessel, bursts open, or when you just have the hose and you step on it, okay? And when there is an occlusion, and then there is just not enough blood going. So this is what we call the ischemic stroke, and this is what we call the hemorrhagic stroke. So for all practical purposes, when we talk about CADASIL, we are talking about this one. The vessels are obstructed. They don't necessarily are breaking, although that could happen, and as Janet was talking earlier, there are some reports of what we call microhemorrhages, okay? But micro means really small, really tiny. It's not clear that really what is happening in CADASIL is just a tiny, many hemorrhages that cause the stroke. There is not a strong correlation between the microhemorrhages and the pathology that we see. Instead, there is a lot of correlation between the blood disease, the ischemia, and what we see in terms of the pathology. So it's an ischemic condition. Now, what do you see here?
Lesions.
Where?
The white around the brain.
Which one?
The white.
Come over. You think there is something wrong with both of them or one of them?
Both.
Both? Okay.
Well, I would say there's something here. I'm not sure about that,
Okay.
but this looks a lot like my own brain.